Okay, then let's go ahead.
Yeah.
Right?
Please go ahead.
Okay. So good morning, everybody who's tuned in digitally. Welcome to our first ever digital event. I hope you're as excited as we are. My name is Kavita.
And I'm Ed, and I'm very happy to welcome you to our first event, including you. This D&I event is presented to you by Expat Spouse Initiative and Living In. And we also, of course, collaborate as Holland Expat Center South and Brainport Development to create an HR series on internationalization. Didn't go through last year, but we start up again now on attraction and retention of international talent. And we are here for you, for talent and for companies to help you on every phase of the journey. So when you talk about coming to, for instance, employer branding, you talk about settling in, we talk about mainly formalities. And we talk about living in, how can we connect spouses to SME companies, for instance. We try to do our best to help you out in every possible way.
Yes. And the event is also the closing finale of the 5th edition of a very successful Women for Women program. The Women for Women program, as many of you may know, it connects influential Dutch and local women with international spouses from the Expat Spouses Initiative community. It's a 3-month program where the ambassadors help their talent in the best possible way to connect with the labor market. So why are we? So ESI Living In Brainport. I have quickly change my screen. Why are we essentially coming together and hosting a inclusion and diversity event? Because essentially this last year has been pretty unique. It's been an experience like no other for most of us. So a lot of things are been different, but it's also made us really aware of where we fall short as entities, organizations, society, but also made us in many ways really human. We've all found strength in and meaning in being there for one another, including each other in conversation, both at home and at work. And that's pretty much been the red line of all our activities in the last 1 year. Inclusion was at the basis of our conversation the last 1 year. If I can ask Ed to comment on the changes recently we faced and how it impacted the activity.
What all of us face, of course, in working from home and what's happening in companies, these are challenging times. We have to adjust to a new now. And many people get disconnected, and some of our international colleagues get even disconnected before they are aiming to connect, before they have the opportunity to connect to the environment. And more than ever, the need for them or for us to help out is quite clear now, and we can do more than what we do, because that's our intention in the Living In program, to help out on every part of the journey, every step of the journey, in how can we engage people to the environment, to the region. Of course, they need to be engaged into the company, but there's more than that. It's not only about the employee, it's about the family. And you have a specific opinion on that as well, I can imagine, Kavita.
Yeah, so including family, which is one of the tracks under which we'll present inclusion today, is relevant because the whole approach that this region has taken, that it's not only a talent who moves, but it's really a family who moves, is really a game changer from a regional perspective, but also individual company perspectives. 1/3 of all international assignments fail because of a family reason, because a spouse or a partner is not engaged. If that's not reason enough, spouses and partners, the key entity in a family, are top talent locally available, but go under the radar. And far from being a problem, they're actually an opportunity because they can equally contribute to the economy and the society. 97% of the pool in the Expat Spouses Initiative are highly skilled, highly educated, university level educated. And more than 53% have actually more than 5 years of work experience before they come to the Netherlands. So they're looking for opportunities in Eindhoven, in right now, right here. And what we do with Expat Spouses Initiative is we try to help them connect in the best way possible to the local labor market. We are more than 2,000 people now in the community of 2,000 professionals. And the collaboration with Living in including family into the conversation so directly um, as the center of the conversation and retention has made a very big difference. It's been a meeting of top level strategy from a Brainport, Holland Expat Center, Living In, and with bottom up impact. So because of this, in the last year, we've been actually able to do a lot of activities, be very active, adapt quickly, be agile, and continue to include internationals so far.
Yeah, and today we have a very interesting program for you because we know a little bit from the Living In program how to be inclusive. We started including international talent by means of, among others, Expert Spouse Initiative to work together quite closely. And today we want to look into inclusion on 3 different tracks and create an answer to the question, how can we include international talent? How can we include families? And how can we include women? There are many interesting sessions to come about. Please make sure that you register for the sessions and you can create your own program for the day. And make sure that you get connected to the Women for Women talents as well, because they are displaying the talent today and they are here as well for you. So it's interesting for you to also connect to the talent. And Kavita, you can start with introducing the first panel if you like.
Yeah, so we are very glad to have with all of us today, Paul Feenstra, the CEO, Vice President of Fluke EMEA, Peter Bailliere, Executive Vice President, HRO of ASML, joining us in the first opening keynote conversation, which will be on the road ahead for inclusion and diversity. They are both influencers in the region who shape the internationalization conversation through their own companies, the work that they do, but also personally committed to inclusion and diversity. Mayor John Jorritsma was supposed to join us today, but given the recent developments in Eindhoven, understandably, he's not able to join us. So I especially want to welcome and thank Monique List, who's Alderman Monique List, who's just joined us. She being here shows that her, but also the region's commitment to the topic of inclusion and diversity. I know Monique herself has been an accompanying spouse and has always supported the conversation. Last but not the least, I want to welcome Monique Moles, Head of Corporate Communication, ASML. Monique has been one of the driving forces behind internationalization in this region. She's supported ESI from day one, but she's also played a key role in setting up of a dedicated Living In program in the region. She's also a very vocal advocate of gender equality. With that, I'll give the floor to Monique.
Thank you, Kavita. Thank you very much. Thanks everyone for joining. It would have been really great to see all of you in a big room having interaction. I know that that's how it works best, and I'm now talking into my camera and my screen, and I see a few faces here. I love interaction, and I want you to be part of this conversation. You know, talking about interaction, I just got an app message from someone who's joined and said, "We can hear you talk about your neighbor's bathroom and the fact you're not wearing your pajamas." So already quite some interaction going on. So I hope this was interesting information for you. But this is the official start of the panel discussion. So thank you, Paul. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Monique, for joining. I also want to introduce Megan McVie. She's one of the talents in the Women for Women program, and I've been very fortunate to be her ambassador this year. Megan will help us to make sure that your comments, your interaction, your opinions, your questions are heard in this panel discussion. So use the chat function. Tell us what you think, tell us what your questions are, whatever. She'll also be posting some polls for you to give your opinion, and she'll come back with the results of that as well. So to make sure that it is more interactive than we usually have just sitting in front of a screen. So thanks everyone for joining. Well, let's kick this off with a very easy first question. So I'd like to make the rounds and ask my panelists to introduce themselves, but also briefly explain what diversity and inclusion means to them. Paul, could you kick this off?
Yeah, first of all, it's a pleasure to be part of this event again. I have the luxury to join now for the second time. Big success last year, and I'm happy and hopefully to contribute again this year to a good event. My name is Paul Feenstra. I'm like I said, I'm the Vice President for EMEA for Fluke. Fluke is a globally listed company. We are part of a bigger consortium called Fortive, which is a 4 billion company. Fluke is a 1.5 billion company. Out of that, like I said, globally, we are the market leader for test and troubleshooting equipment. So every green, every yellow tool that we develop is basically a Fluke one that you see globally. We make these test and measurement tools for the industry, but also for hospitals. We supply also your basic electrician that comes at your door to troubleshoot and help if you have troubles with your light, for instance. So keep an eye out for the yellow toolbox tools that are out there. We're a bit of the Coca-Cola in the industry. You start seeing us if you know it. The key thing for us, why we are pushing this topic of inclusion and diversity so much is really because we're going to talk about it further on in the panel as well, is that we see there's not just value add to be gained here as a company for just business wise. So it's not just only part of growing our company, and there's metrics and research done that shows us that more diverse and inclusive companies perform actually better than those that do not. But moreover, I think as we progress more and more to a digital and remote working circumstance, we are competing for talent as a region, as a company, and inclusion and diversity is a theme that is important and more important. You see that, you can tell that by the interviews by candidates that we acquire. They're looking for companies that have this high on their agenda. And what I mean with that is they want to see how authentic a company is in driving inclusion and diversity, rather than is this a marketing billboard because it's just happened to be a fad, right? Yeah. And I think what I hope to contribute throughout the panel discussion today is to show that at Fluke we take this serious. It's not a billboard item for us. It's something that we truly drive and inspire to live in all parts of the organization. So, yeah. Thanks.
So Fluke sounds like one of those really high technical Brainport companies. So we'll be talking about masculinity of the Brainport region in a second, because I'm curious to see how you manage to get that diversity in and to actually make that work.
I have a fun fact, Monique, as well to call out. A fun fact is that we're a trusted partner for ASML and some other, obviously larger companies here in the Brainport area. We work closely with Van der Landes, the Philipses of this world as well. And last but not least, we have started to move 4 of our locations into one. And we're going to be residing as of now in the Brainport Industry Campus location, which is the first project on the Brainport Industry Campus site. We're going to be the largest tenant with 400 employees, all grouped together in that Brainport facility. So we hope to play a bigger role in that ecosystem and get more networking in place and leveraging the benefits of the Brainport Industries campus as such.
Good. We really look forward to seeing you take active part in all the discussions that are going on. Let's move to my fellow namesake, how do you call that? Monique List. Welcome, Monique. Thanks for stepping in. It's really good to have you here. It also creates a little bit of a more diverse panel, I must say. So I think we're killing two birds with one stone here. Monique, what's diversity and inclusion mean for you and for the municipality of Eindhoven?
Yeah, well, thanks very much, Monique. Well, we are having the same name. My name is Monique List. I'm Vice Mayor of the city of Eindhoven, and I'm replacing John Jorritsma at the moment because, as you can imagine, it's an extremely hectic time at the moment within our country, but especially also in our city. I'm very happy to be here and to tell you a little bit more about the city of Eindhoven and the way we're actually dealing with talents, but also with inclusion and diversity. And maybe I can speak a little bit also just for the audience about a little bit of personal experience, because years ago I've been living as an expat abroad, been working abroad as an expat, but also a time in my life I've been being a spouse of an expat. So I've sort of experienced the different situations, not only in Europe, in different countries, but also in the Far East. But coming back to the importance of inclusiveness and diversity for the city of Eindhoven, and maybe it's good to sort of go back in history. The city of Eindhoven has a history with, of course, with the big employer Philips of years ago of having people to attract talent, to attract from all different parts of this country. We have different parts of our city who we have with names like the Drents village, and Drents village actually says a part of one of the provinces of our country. And years ago, Philips attracted a lot of people from Drenthe, from the north of our country. And that's the reason I mean that example, because our city is a city which has been from history on attracting people from abroad, from different regions in our country, and these last many years from attracting many people to work and to live here from different countries all over the world. So the city has a way of adapting to people from all different backgrounds. And let me say, being inclusive as a city is therefore extremely important. And I hope to say that being inclusive is part of our DNA in the city of Eindhoven. We are an open city. We are inclusive for people of all different backgrounds, and we found this very important also to accommodate people with different talents from different countries. And
Monique, what exactly does it mean when you say the city is inclusive? How would our audience recognize this?
Well, we're trying to give people who are coming from different countries a very warm welcome, to give them all sort of formal information, of course, but also to let them participate in, give them exposure to, let's say, cultural events, make sure they get proper housing, also not in specific parts of the cities, but also to spread it all over the city, and to make sure that, for example, communication, we do that in different languages, not only in Dutch. These are different examples in which we try really to be open to people from different backgrounds. And the inclusiveness in that respect is very important. For example, for our housing policy, we are actually making sure that we are not building for a particular group, but that everybody who actually needs housing, how important, but also how difficult it is at this time, actually is in a position to get a house or an apartment or whatever.
Monique, I'd like to take that up with you later, and also to see what it means to have internationals in the. I'm not just for everyone's. I'm not using the word expats here. I hate the word expats because it means people are here temporarily. Most people have been invited by the companies to be here, to stay here forever, to have kids here, to have a social life here. So we call them internationals. I know this organization is called Expat Spouses Initiative, so I will engage in discussions with Kavita to have that changed. But you know, for this conversation, let's use the term international, because I think it's also a little bit more inclusive. Let's briefly go to Peter Bailliere for an introduction, and then we can really kick off with all the questions. Peter, who are you? What do you do? And how does diversity and inclusion play a role in your life and in your job?
Definition. Okay, thank you, Monique. So my name is Peter Bailliere. I'm the global head of HR in ASML since close to 3 years now. I'm Belgium. I've been working before I joined ASML always for Swedish-based companies, Volvo Cars and Alfa Laval. Moved to Sweden in 1999 and moved back to Holland 3 years ago. I moved to Holland here 3 years ago. Always had a keen interest for the topic of diversity and inclusion. Also related to my personal situation. I mean, my wife has been an expat wife, and she always managed to find a job. And I know it's not always that easy. She had to follow me, but she always managed to find a job one way or another, which gives me a lot of respect for what she has been doing, because she followed me. When it comes to my definition of diversity and inclusion, it's actually two different things. I mean, we always say diversity is a fact. I mean, it's really diversity is about the full range of differences we anyhow have in society and have increasingly in society. And it's both the visible and the invisible differences and similarities. And we recently had a discussion in ASML about this, and it was really important for my colleagues in ExCom that we really limit the definition as broad and don't limit it to the visible parts, gender, nationality, but really include it also the non-visible part, personality traits, things like autism. I mean, things like people have all kinds of dyslexias. We really want to be the company that is open to everyone, irrespective of the both visible and invisible kind of difference in society. Mm-hmm. Inclusion is more than this. I mean, why diversity is facts, it's more facts. I mean, inclusion requires behavior, it requires mindset, it requires more proactiveness. It's more of about behavior. It's really about making sure that all the different groups, categories, as first of all, have equal opportunities to contribute to society, to contribute to ASML, to contribute to the overall, whatever society, whichever organization you have. And it's even more on this. It's about capitalizing on all these differences, bringing them together, and really to bring new perspectives, to create more innovation, to create more creativity, to really make the world and to make ASML an even better company. That's a bit my definition. I mean, in terms of ASML, I mean, we're a very fast growing company, you know, in terms of diversity. We have, I mean, totally now we have about 26,500 employees. We have about, I think, 110 different nationalities and 103 only in Holland here. And it's increasing because of the fact that the talent base in Holland is a bit too small. We can't find the kind of capabilities we have sufficiently in Holland. So we need to reach out to the global labor market, and it's further increasing. I mean, about 1/3 of the people here we have in Holland are non-Dutch origin. And for example, last year we recruited about 1,500 people net globally, about more than half of them in Holland. And let's say about more than 40% of them are non-Dutch origin. So the number of internationals is continuously increasing. Also, the number of women is increasing, but not fast enough.
So this is, oh, I see Megan. Megan, do you have some questions for us?
I do. Yes, thank you. We have two from the audience. One was, how do you get in contact with the spouse? So these are people who are saying that when they're hiring an international, they only speak with the international, so they aren't necessarily in contact or know much about the spouse. So that's the first one. We have another one when you're done with that one.
So this is the question about dual career, right? So if we're hiring an international and bringing them from abroad to the Netherlands, do we actively ask them, do you have a spouse that's talented, that wants to work, and how can we help? Paul, what's your experience with? It's a really good question. Paul, what's your experience?
It's a really good question, and I think at the moment we're not actively asking that. It's more opportunistic. If it comes to the table, we'll address it. We're going to look for support, etc. For us, IND has been and this part as well in terms of how do we recruit from internationals is really been something that we are trying to get to the next level for the last 2 years, and because it starts, you know, by getting more awareness first. We're still in this coming out of the awareness phase, if you like, with all people managers that that we have to do more and do better. And so my experience is we are definitely open to this conversation.
And how would you do that, Paul? How would you start this?
Yeah, that basically, I think we always have a little bit like ASML, I guess, is we always have a need for talent, especially international talent. We are having our EMEA headquarters here in Eindhoven. We have something like 30 nationalities currently present. And there's always a need for a certain language, a certain skill set that helps us, you know, being that regional headquarters that can support this international landscape. I think the more and more what we're trying to do is not look just at a job description, right? But look at talent, right? So if talents, if you have a talent, basically that's what I'm saying. If you have a talent and you're open to be flexible, right? Because there's not always maybe the right fit for the right job. If you're an architect and you come to us, I don't have a role, but you might have, you know, great organizational skill sets or talents. You might have that high intellect or high education background, and if you're open to be flexible, to get grounded in a different type of role in the organization, then we're open to have a dialogue with such a person as well. Because I've seen that works. It could help, you know, a different career spin as such. But that's how we approach it. So don't look at the job description per se. Look at what talents does someone bring to the table. And do we have a position for them?
Yeah, it sounds like an open invitation to everyone. So I'm sure you're heard.
Yep.
Peter, we have a lot of, I work for ASML too, so sorry. We have a lot of internationals, we have a lot of spouses. What's your experience with spouses, and do they actively contact you? Do the recruiters focus on them? Because they're such a huge pool of talent, maybe a little bit different than the regular easy candidates we get in, but how do we do this?
Probably not enough. I do know we hire quite some of them, but I don't think it's a systematic part of our recruitment process. So to be honest, listening to this audience this morning made me reflect that I do need to talk to my talent acquisition team, we call it in ASML, to really make sure are we sufficiently tapping in the potential we already have in the region. Because we're sometimes stuck in our standard recruitment process. I mean, we're a very technical oriented company. We really look to something for very specific technical competence in meteorology, and that's what we're focusing on. But like we said, we have to change this process also. We have to recruit much more for attributes, for personality, for leadership talent. I mean, we need to change, and because I think skills you can learn, attitudes and behaviors you can't. I mean, that's something you have in the company. So I will talk to my talent acquisition team. I think we're probably sitting on some kind of untapped potential we have in the region, and I will do that.
Thank you, Peter. Monique, if you walk into the city hall of Eindhoven and you look at the people working there, are there many internationals like the audience we have today, or spouses, and are there opportunities for them?
Well, I have to be honest, as a municipality, we have very few internationals working for us. That has mainly to do with the language, because as a municipality, of course, well, we require that people also speak Dutch, because we have to interact as a municipality with many people working here, of course, with everybody in the city and outside the city. So I have to say, we're making progress on diversity. We've done a research project on that as well to make sure that we are actually on the ball on that. And that report actually showed that there was room for improvement. There has to be.
What kind of improvements did that report tell you?
Well, its report actually said that we're not as diverse as we want to be.
That's a start, yeah.
And that was for us a start. We did the first research on that. We actually let the Tilburg University do the research. Yeah. But the report actually showed that we have room for improvement, and we implemented also some recommendations on the recruitment process, on the selection process, but also in the management development process within our organization. We have done a restudy in 2019, and again by Tilburg University, and it showed that as an organization we are actually more inclusive, more diverse in the personnel we are employing. So there is progress, but I have to say we're actually working on that still, on recruitment, selection, but also with people working for us. But
you're
I have
to say, sorry, Monique, you're making one very important comment, and that's the language. So what I keep hearing around me is that, you know, you can come to the Netherlands and you speak English and there's really no issue and you can get a job. In practice, it's a little bit more difficult than that. And I also think in social interactions, right? Would you comment on that?
Well, it is. I'm talking of the municipality as an employer. So I'm not talking about many companies, small or big, who are actually in the city. As a municipality, of course, well, we require that in many jobs, people speak Dutch. Not in all jobs, I have to say. We are actually also having jobs where it's not necessary as a first language, but as an employer, we actually have to deal, if you're coming here for example, a passport, if you're coming here for information about if you want to extend your house and what sort of, you know, there's many of people have speaking the Dutch language. We have to actually give good service to our people within the city, on inhabitants within Eindhoven. And that's the reason in many jobs here we require also Dutch as a language, spoken language.
Let us take that topic and then move to Paul, because Paul, would you agree that it's okay to speak English and you can get along in your job, but would you also advise everyone to really start learning Dutch, or is it completely unnecessary?
Yeah,
such a beautiful language.
Yeah, I you know, and I look at myself, I think there's a personal element here as well. And I lived abroad as well, maybe like Monique here, and wherever I lived, I wanted to learn the language, the local language, because I saw it as a true benefit and something I could give to myself as a skill set, but also to my family, right? So I think there's value just from a personal driver. What I do see though is in the daily practices, our language is English very much as an international headquarters, and so we even talk English to each other if we're in the room with just Dutch people, right? And then we have to say, hey, we can talk Dutch. So it's a little bit like that. But I would do recommend everybody to learn a local language. I mean, to your point, Monique, you said earlier, if the journey doesn't end successfully, at the least thing that you want to have as you know, coming into Eindhoven and working in the Netherlands as an international, is that you've mastered, you know, some of your skill sets in language and etc. So I think it should come intrinsically by yourself, although we do promote it. So we do offer every person that's joining Fluke from abroad and that needs to relocate, we offer a language course to learn Dutch. That is part of our standard program. So it supports the fact that we do value it as an employer as well.
Yeah, thank you. Peter, anything to add? I think it's sort of similar.
No, I would agree. I mean, I think on one hand, if you take it purely professional, it's not absolutely necessary. I mean, to do the job in ASML, we basically speak a lot of English. It's a corporate language, but I mean, again, following the discussion of inclusiveness, it's really about taking steps towards the other society, towards the other groups. I mean, it also helps you to understand the culture. I mean, you do take a step toward the Dutch and you understand the culture a bit better and you open up for the Dutch to open up to you. So I think it's really important as a signal that you want to, and a bit of respect also.
Well,
and you don't need to speak perfectly, but it shows goodwill and it shows that you are prepared as a foreigner to take steps towards the Dutch, and then the Dutch will take steps towards you. I mean, it's very simple and it helps you to understand the culture. So. Although at the same time, I'm still frustrated that we still speak so much Dutch in the company. I mean, that's a different story.
Yes. Megan.
Yeah, thanks. I'm popping in. I'm getting a lot of questions here about how companies are integrating the full family. So from students to the rest of the family, how are companies helping the full talent and the inclusion of family?
Paul, how do you do that?
I love it. I love it. Yeah, for Fluke, it's clear if your son or daughter wants to do a traineeship or wants to do a program for school or whatever, they are invited. I mean, that's and luckily we see this happening. But again, maybe we're not promoting it as much as we should. So this is very much also depending on your people manager that you have on how that gets promoted internally. Maybe we need to do a bit more there centrally in our communication and exposure. But I love it. I love it. If your family members become a fan of the company, imagine how that social balance between work and life, is going to just support each other. So yeah.
Yeah, Paul. But on the other hand, where do you draw the line, right? So ASML has never asked me about my family, and I know that they're part of the sort of extended ASML family. But where do you draw the line? I'm sure it's part of onboarding people and making sure that they stay in the part, because for internationals it's different than for Dutch people. But how far do you go?
Yeah, I think that there's a natural advocacy that it doesn't need to be a candidate that over time is going to work for the company as well, right? Although it could be, right? Like a family evolution of people that are working for the same company, or a little bit like Philips had historically in the past.
Yeah.
But I think everyone that has a great impression about the company is going to talk positively, and any of those persons might end up in another company is going to buy ultimately Fluke products. So I think it's part of an ecosystem you're creating.
The yellow ones, huh? The yellow.
The yellow tool. So I think that so it's about employer branding. It's about making sure you're recognized for developing talents, for attracting talent. That diversity is based in all levels of not just family life, but also gender and all the other things that we talked about earlier. So
thank you. And Monique, what does the municipality of Eindhoven have for families? You've got some really interesting organizations that are helpful here, like expat center.
Yes.
Yeah. Social. A lot of social stuff going on. Schools that are preparing for international.
Yeah, we actually we have, of course, our living in program, which is very important. That says already living in. That's not only yourself who coming to work here, but also in a company, but also your family. So that's very important, and we address that. We have, of course, we see how important it is, because if somebody comes here for a job and his spouse or her partner, that's also possible, or the family, the children are not happy, that has a very big influence, and that's a very risk also that people going back to their home country. So we have, of course, the international school, which is very important, of course, so that if actually parents decide that they like to have the children on an international school to continue on education, that's possible. But we have also now in many schools, also primary schools, an international stream. And you said that already, Monique, that there's many internationals who are actually staying here longer than a few years. And they like also to have their children to participate within the neighbor school. So we have many contacts also with the schools, especially for younger children, to either to have an international stream or really to participate in the local, let me say, the Dutch stream, and go to school with other Dutch Eindhoven children and speak Dutch between themselves, which is, of course, a very good way of being part of our community. And school is very important, of course, for families. And within the Living In program, I said that already on the Expat Center. Also, we're making sure that people are aware of what's going on, whether it's social activities, cultural sports activities, and getting to know the area well, because that's extremely important to settle in and to be happy to get a new home here for not only the person who's coming to work here, but for his or her whole family.
So the place to go to is Expert Center for all the information that's available, and actively look for those and take part. Peter, how about ASML and families?
Oh, I mean, it's a bit, in the old days, I would have said a happy wife makes a happy life. I mean, but this statement doesn't work anymore since you have more and more husbands that are following the wives. But to recognize the importance of the family in the recruitment process, I think we try to do this. We try to engage the family, the whole family in the recruitment process in terms of relocation, bring them in the onboarding process. Not only what we do ourselves, but we have a lot of diversity groups. I mean, young at ASML, women at ASML, and all these kind of groups that try to play an active role in the onboarding and the socialization and the integration of our families into ASML and into the broader Dutch society. Are we doing enough? Again, sitting in this forum, I probably think we don't do enough. So I have a lot of reflection to take home after this kind of session. But I think we try to do our best. I mean, to make the family and not only the husband or the wife part of the process. Yes, we try to put it on the agenda. It's high on the agenda because we do realize if the kids are not happy here, if the husband or the partner is happy, it doesn't work. It doesn't work for us. And
I would like to have a very brief question and very short answers for everyone. So what is the single thing that we can do better, that you can do better, that Brainport Eindhoven can do better? One thing, if you had to have an action list after today, so what's the one thing where you think we really need to focus on that? Monique, can you kick this off? Sorry to put you on a spot here.
Well, the most important thing is to be aware that if the family is not happy, whether it's a spouse, husband, or children, then it will never be a success with the new employee within our city, within our region. And I think that awareness is for us very important. And that means if you have that, then you can sort of, well, there's a lot of new actions coming from that.
Absolutely. Peter, what's the one thing?
I mean, the thing following discussion this morning is that I do think we have insufficiently tapped into the potential we have when it comes to expats. And I do hate the word, but let's say international spouses or husbands. I don't think we have done enough to tap into that potential. And that's just for me the biggest thing that I will take back home after this session.
Okay. And Paul?
I think it's part of this awareness, what we can offer as a region. I think as a company, we can't do it alone. I think everybody's fighting for talent or looking for talent. And the circumstances that will keep the talents in for a longer period of time, in the region at Brainport. I think it starts with understanding what we have to offer as companies, as well as what Brainport can do, what the community can do, what the city of Eindhoven can do. And I think there are so many initiatives going on that you don't know of. Even in the high-tech campus, there's a women's initiative for
female tech heroes.
Expat spouses. I think the more I dig, the more I find, and I've never ever heard about it. And nobody knew until 2 years ago maybe about Fluke. And so bringing demand and offering better together by understanding what's available. I think there's a role to play for all. So the city of Eindhoven, the company. The companies that are based in Brainport, but also communities that are active in this region, and I feel I have to pull it as a leader of the company, but we need to maybe think about this as Brainport more collectively. Is there a repository or is there a way of knowing what's going on in the region, and how can we tap into that potential to unleash it?
Yeah, but I would also add, making sure that you bring the local community together with the internationals, because what you don't want is a separate world for internationals, a separate world for locals.
Exactly.
But to actually mix them more, because you sometimes hear some grumblings also, let's be honest, in Brainport, where people say, I don't hear Dutch anymore in the stores that when they're open again, and they feel a bit left out. So I think making the connection between the two groups is actually something that maybe is something we can do as companies, but I think also that the municipality of Eindhoven has a big role in that. Monique, how do you see that? And I'll get back to Megan after this, because I know she was signaling that there's a lot of urgent questions and comments from you guys.
Yeah, I think it's very important to make the connection and to get a feeling, what's actually happening behind the employee who is new to this region. I think that's very important, and to see really that. I think for us, we do that within the Brainport, within the expat center, and within the living in. That's the reason we have this living in program, because the name says it already. It's very important, to make sure people are happy here when they're living here. It's not only to work, but it's also to live, and that's our responsibility also there. And I think from that respect, it's very important that we know and get in contact with people about what's missing, maybe what can we do as within the city of Eindhoven, within Brainport, for example, to activate
and to make the connection,
and to really make connection about what do people actually feel about it.
Yeah, Megan, are you there? What's
am,
burning?
yes.
What are the top? What are you guys talking about?
We're getting a lot of questions, and actually, I really encourage people to join the chat if they aren't doing that, because there's some good resources that are being shared by other people that are out there that are watching. There's been a lot of questions, especially about employment opportunities. What's the Gemeente doing? When you come here with your partner, they already have a job. It's a little more difficult for you. So what are some supports? And they're sharing some great links in there. But one question that I haven't seen answered that was early on being asked was about remote working, and like how companies maybe are including that, especially now that they've had more experience with that. Is that going to be something that they're going to use moving forward that might actually really help, families?
Good question, Peter.
Well, the discussion is still very much ongoing in ASML, as you know. I mean, in the beginning, it was all kind of hype and I think a lot of companies declared at that moment, in the future, everyone will be able to work anywhere, anytime. We have, after a while, also started to see the disadvantage. There's too much homework, both for the individual, but also for the company. I mean, in terms of creative work, we see that a number of it does start to have a bit of a negative impact on social cohesion and creativity. So we will, after COVID, also, let's say, allow even more homework, but it will not be our default way of working. Our default way of working in ASML, because of the creativity, because of the fact that we're a system builder, will still be mainly in the office. But then for certain activities, 1 or 2 days a week will still be possible. And this because we think it has positive impacts on work-life balance. It has also positive impact on the environment. And if we are able to organize in a way that the right activities are happening on the right spot, then it will also have a positive impact on productivity. But it will not become our default way of working after COVID. To work from home or from anywhere. That's
no office-less company. That's not,
and that's not that we as a company can. I mean, because of the creativity dynamics, the need for informal, but also for the individual.
Yeah,
start to feel that too much to be disconnected has a negative impact on social cohesion, motivation, well-being.
But definitely more opportunities to work remote, right? I think we've also got the Zooms and the Teams, and we've got all the equipment. Paul, do you see the same dynamics in your company?
Yeah, exactly. I think the hybrid model that Peter is referring to is absolutely what I see will continue to exist. I think the key word here that is the learning. The biggest learning has been many people were against remote working. And it had to do with trust, productivity. People are doing their garden instead of their work, and all of that. And we've seen the reverse. I think we've seen people spending more hours behind Zoom and Teams than maybe ever before, doing their work, which has the negatives. I think that's Peter referring to as well. I think the barriers between social and work is going to disappear easily if you work from home. But I do think that a hybrid model will continue to exist. What I liked about the situation, right, the whole pandemic state, is that it unleashed an enormous amount of creativity and new ways of collaborating in a much more flexible and international way of working. Mm-hmm. So our biggest challenge was always to get those that are working in a country And I always say that person that works in the south of Spain in an isolated area, and traveling by himself, doing business all by himself, that has a back office somewhere in the Netherlands to support him, etc. You know, the connectivity that those people has gone up tremendously, because a lot of the new tools allows all of these remote people to collaborate in a different way. And there's much more connection remotely now than ever before in this situation. And that's just one example of where I think that there's positive effects to this as well. But to talk to creativity or some of the processes that you just need, you know, face-to-face connections and social interaction, because people are socially getting disconnected. So I think that the true answer is here, being flexible as an employer, and accommodate for what is needed for the position and the role that you have in the organization. But be flexible.
I'm also looking at the time, and Megan, I think you have to rush off, because I have a really pressing question that I would like to ask. And then, is there a question that's...
Yeah, I do. I want to just make sure that before I go, I let you know that there were some questions about measures to overcome the gender inequalities in the workplace. So if they get a chance to tackle that one, I think it'd be great. I want to say thank you. And you guys are amazing. And this has been a really good discussion. Monique, thanks for moderating.
Thanks for joining us, Megan.
Thanks, Megan.
My top talent this year. Gender inequality. I was just going to say, Brainport is still very masculine. It's white men, and don't get me wrong, we don't hate men, right? No, nobody does. But there is definitely, especially in the Dutch culture, there is a sense that if it's about technology, then this is a man's job. It's a man's world. Outside the Netherlands, there's much more women in engineering, in physics and science, everything. So I think in part there's some issue in Dutch culture, but I would kind of hope that and really believe that as a Brainport region, we are in a position to make that change. So what does it take to do that, Monique? Do you have some, and also not just the big companies, also the smaller companies? I think it's the whole ecosystem. How do we change that and make it more diverse for changes?
It's a very, I see this is a very, very difficult question, Monique, because
I was actually hoping you had the answer.
Well, I don't have the answer. From history onwards, especially in Holland, we are a country in which women are not choosing many technical studies. And that means, of course, we are a technological region here with many companies working in that field. And that means, of course, because from the Dutch university, mainly men are graduating and coming to work in a technical job, whether on different sort of levels. You see that's a different in other countries. It is a cultural thing. I think we have a responsibility as a country to do something about that. But I know how difficult that is, because we've been working as a country on that for many years on that, and there's still very, very little progress.
What's keeping us, Monique? What's stopping
I don't know.
us?
I don't know. There's one thing which I think is very important for women. It's also to get into networks. And we cannot change that. That's a thing for our country and for many countries. But I think to get into a job, to get into a connection, to get new people within or outside your network, I think it's very important to become part of a network, whether it's through a sports club or through school or through your neighbors maybe. And I like to, because this is a very international meeting, as a woman, I like to say something about that. I was always very impressed by Madeleine Albright from the US.
Yeah.
And Madeleine said, and I think there's many people who maybe recognize this call, there's a special place in hell for women who do not support each other. So I think there's a responsibility for us also, Monique, and other women in this call and outside to help each other a little bit. At least,
sisterhood. It's sisterhood, and which is why the Women for Women program is perfect, because this is the entire thing of the best thing about the Women for Women program. You open up your network for women that don't have that network.
yeah.
Peter, how do we promote sisterhood, and how do we get more women out there and make them more visible? Oh, we're running out of time, but I'd love to finish this one if Kavita allows us.
What's your question, Monique?
How do we break that masculinity in Brainport? How do we make sure women are more visible, and how do we?
I mean, it's a big issue, and moving from Sweden, I was pretty shocked, to be honest, to see, for example, also what society still expects from women. I mean, the number of women that stop their careers because of children. I mean, my wife moved to Sweden 20 years ago, and with 3 small kids, but it was not an issue. I mean, she was still expected to have a full-time job, and people would look very strange upon her if she wouldn't have worked full-time. Here it's a bit the opposite sometimes. So it has to go along with the shift in society. Also, I recently saw a study in terms of participation in Holland, labor participation in Holland, and it's not that bad in Holland. But if you include the number of, Sweden has probably the largest amount of part-time work in the world. So if you then, I think the participation is about 50-55%, but if you include part-time work, it's only 40%. And I think we need to recognize that these elements and the pressure and the expectation is not helping.
Yeah.
How do we shift this or not? I think we need to take our work, our responsibility in the company. I think I've raised it very high on the company. We are making progress. I mean, we have now 20% women, but we're definitely not good enough in terms of female manager. But I can say that the last discussion in Nexcom was really painful, but people felt so embarrassed that it will trigger action, I'm sure.
Yeah, you need those courageous conversations. We've been talking about that.
Because the intent is pure. I mean, people want to do the right thing, not because of all the arguments that we hear about, because of creativity, because it's just the right thing to do. It's utterly belief in the company.
Yeah, good. So we also have to make ourselves more visible, right? And I think we can help each other to do that. Paul,
but make yourself visible as talent. We can see that you're female. Honestly,
no hiding.
You know what I mean.
Absolutely. Paul, what's your final famous last words, because we're running over time. But I don't hear any complaints from Kavita, so we'll just continue until she comes in and shuts us off.
Yeah, very, very quickly. I fully agree with what Peter is saying. Part-time work, if that allows more women to join the workforce, then I definitely like that. The other part is recommendation for all women out there that have great talents is forget about gender stereotypes. The gender stereotypes we see is killing the self-confidence of many women out there, and they're hiding or downplaying their own talents because that's how they brought up, that's how they expect the society will look at it, that's what the general assumptions are, etc. Stop doing that. Raise your hand, call out what your talents are, and come forward with those talents. So speak up more. Don't downplay yourself and make yourselves heard. And then there's always a discussion to talk about talents and how you can unleash that for any company out there in the region. So call to action for every woman out there. Yeah.
Practice in front of the mirror. Practice with your friends.
Yep.
Be bold.
Be bold.
I think if we as women have an idea that we're not being modest, we're probably still being very modest. So maybe we should break. We don't need to be men. Let's we don't want to be like men. We are different. We bring different qualities in, but we definitely should be more proud of what we do and show what we can do.
Absolutely.
It's such a shame that I can't see the response. Kavita, you were interrupting. You were trying to round this off and stick to your agenda, right?
Yes, we are running out of time, but the chat is really going crazy. There's a lot of questions. You touched on all the main topics. Thank you so much. Monique mentioned about courageous conversation. It makes such a big difference that all of you who are you have your own radar of influence, a very significant radar of influence, when you speak up and lend your voice to the topics we are discussing today. So thank you so much for that. It was very, very, it was a very good conversation. All of us were glued.
Well, thanks for having us, Kavita.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us, Kavita. It's been a pleasure, and look forward to the rest of the event. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. See you again. Have a nice
Thank
day.
you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.